Hello, everybody. Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joel Lalgee. Super excited to be with you guys today. There's a lot going on, as always, in the world of recruitment, job search, LinkedIn, TikTok, social media. There's always so much stuff going on. So I'm excited to be with you guys. We are, of course, going to be covering some of the latest news, a lot of the trends that are going on social media. And I have with me a great co-host today, a friend that I believe we've been friends for a couple of years. We met over LinkedIn. I've been on her show before, which we'll put some links into the chat. But we have Lauren Surman with us, and Lauren is the founder of LWL Consulting. She's a recruiter by trade. Recruits a lot of salespeople, recruits in tech, so really has a pulse on what is going on in the market. She also hosts multiple live shows, just does a ton within the LinkedIn community. I think she has like 40,000 followers, and puts out a ton of really, really valuable content. And is, I like to consider myself one of the most active LinkedIn posters, but I think I actually might be beat by Lauren. So, Lauren, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you with us. What did I miss? Did I miss anything there? Was that a decent intro? What are your thoughts?
You did a wonderful job. Thank you so much. No, we've definitely been friends. Super excited to be on the show with you. Loved it when you came on mine. We always have the best conversation. And yeah, just super excited to be here and chat today.
Yeah, what's your show about for anyone who isn't familiar?
Yeah, so every Friday I host the Friday Live with Lauren show. Super original title. It's on LinkedIn and YouTube. It's really just an hour where you can come and learn. You're going to laugh. You're going to level up your career, your job search, whatever you got going on. We bring
Yeah.
on industry leaders. We brought Joel on. We've had some really amazing guests. All the past episodes are going to be on my page. And I'll also drop the link of Joel's episode in the chat later. But yeah, just it's fun. It's an hour. Goes by super fast. We have some great sponsors, Better Leap and Sendoso. And yeah,
Yeah.
a great hour every Friday.
I love it. And how long have you been running the show for?
We are in season 2, and this week will be episode 32. We're in the 32nd week of the year. It's every single Friday.
Wow.
No breaks, no matter what. We've done the show twice with COVID, so it's live. You just got to do it.
Yeah,
But
I
super
mean, I suppose you
excited.
don't need masks when it's a virtual show, so that's probably helpful.
No, the one time I didn't know I had COVID, and my guest told me right before. She was like, "I think you have COVID," and I tested that night. I was like, "Oh, you were right."
That is
So
hilarious. Well, yeah, I love that. And again, for anyone who doesn't follow you on LinkedIn, we will put the links to Lauren's LinkedIn page, because I think your style of content is fun. It's you, it's yourself. You're not putting on a front for anybody. I know you talk about like your family, you talk about work, solopreneurship, job search. So there's a ton of value for everybody, which I'm excited about. What's one thing that you're working on right now that you're really, really excited about?
we signed some new clients. Business is growing. And everybody who is in recruiting, when you're in this part of your business and you're growing and you're doing great, you get new searches. A lot of people stop putting their foot on the gas for business development, and they stop and they pause and they just get so deep in their searches that their business doesn't continue. So I'm working on really my business continuing to grow, bringing on more recruiters, and continuing to sign new clients.
And it's most of your business development is that inbound now, because I know you got a really strong brand. Are you still doing outbound? What does that look like?
So definitely still do outbound. Don't want to lie. Like we all do outbound. I make my own cold calls too, right? It's also a different style of outbound depending on the industry and who you're reaching out to. Not everybody lives on LinkedIn, y'all.
I
But
know.
I do get a decent amount of inbound from LinkedIn from my content. Y'all don't sleep on the who viewed your profile section. I have reached out to people who are hiring in that section that I just randomly noticed, looked at my page, and I have signed contracts from that
I love it.
so often. So don't sleep on that. Just because people aren't engaging with your content doesn't mean they're not seeing it and looking at you, and interested in working with you. So
I love it. I love it. Well, okay. So for those who are out there, we kind of have like a mixed audience, I would say. We got some job seekers, and some recruiters, which, funnily enough, a lot of recruiters are job seekers. It's not really funny, but I thought we would start today with an interesting post that I saw from a very well-known um, content creator and like just business person, someone that I really, really respect a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people, will be familiar with who this is as well. Let me find the right tab here. Not that one. I think it's this one. Let me see. Looks like it. There we go. So, I mean, first of all, I do want to say before sharing any of this, I'm a huge fan of the Hormozis. I think the content they put out on the whole is really, really great. But I did see this post over the weekend. It got to my attention. A couple people in my network posted on it. And one of the things that happens when you're a recruiter or even just a job seeker is like there's so much content aimed at job seekers right now. I have my own take on this, and I'm going to share a poll that I actually did on this very topic. But for anyone who isn't out there, I'm basically sharing a post, and it says, and this is by Layla Hormozi, and it says, hiring managers and employers won't tell you this, but it's real. And somebody's like, okay, well, why wouldn't they tell people this? Is this going to be true? But she says, your resume does not matter, as much as it used to. The first thing employers look at when they apply for a job is not your resume anymore. It's your social media platform like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. It's X now, right? And TikTok. Think of it this way. When you find a new business that you're interested in buying something from, what do you do first? You go to their social media platforms to understand if what they promise matches reality. The same thing applies here. If an employee likes what they see with your social platform, they're gonna go to they're gonna use your resume to support and match what they've seen on your social profiles. As an inside source who interviews and hires candidates, I don't screen resumes anymore. I screen social media profiles. So, um, look, you're in sales. I'm sure you know Layla Hormozi, right? And I think anyone on social media and in business will know exactly who she is. But what's your thought with this? Like, um, yes, no, maybe so. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think this is as much of a hot take as she thinks it is, right? Like, we've all been told forever, watch what you're putting on social media. People are looking at your social media, right? Does your resume matter as much? Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, you should have already expected people to be looking at your social media. I think this is why it's so important for job seekers to be positive, to always talk about what they're doing online. I do agree that your social is going to be checked, and your social needs to almost, I would say my take is almost the reverse of hers. I don't think your resume matters less. I think your social matters more.
Mm. It just doesn't sound as clickbaity though. That you
No,
know,
but I'm not here for clickbait. I'm here to keep it real with you. And I really think that your resume does matter. Yes, when you are her and you're at her level, you can just look at socials and you can pick who you want to hire. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, you and I know when it comes down to HR and in the process, you got to
yeah,
have a resume.
boring
It's not
HR.
it's not sexy and fun. It's not her
No,
on stage like this. It's boring. So I'm sorry, your resume does still matter, but your social matters more than it ever mattered before. And it's not just in the sense of are you posting great stuff, but are you showing that you're an expert, that you should be the one who's chosen in this really tough job market?
yeah, and look here, it's the reason I'm highlighting this one is because this post basically went viral on LinkedIn, right? Like 1,000 reactions, shared 37 times. Um, and one of the things I've noticed with like just job seeker content in general is like people genuinely will save a post like this and maybe even take it and they'll be like, all right, well, I guess my resume doesn't matter. So I'm going to put zero work in my resume. I'm going to focus really hard on my LinkedIn and TikTok. Um, so yeah, my thought. I love what you said about like how social media is mattering more. So it's not a case of whether the resume is actually mattering less or more. It's actually more a case of like maybe social media is mattering more. You hire a lot of salespeople. I know you've taken on a couple of searches outside of that recently, but from a salesperson perspective, have a lot of your clients been like, oh yeah, we want as like a sales influencer? Like, does that actually impact the decisions that are made in that field?
No. I don't I wish the answer was better. I don't think that that matters as much, especially in that field. I think that obviously you need to have connections. You need to have some sort of people need to know your name and you need to be top of mind. But I don't think you need to be an influencer, so to say, in the sales field, especially a lot of the people that I recruit and that I place in roles. They want you to have your head down and be on the phone and
Yeah, they
closing
want you to be
deals.
selling,
They
right?
don't want you
Isn't it?
to be on social media. They have a marketing team and they have a social team for that.
Yeah.
And I've actually talked to some people who I can't name names, but I've talked to some sellers who went back to sell for companies and they had started getting this following, right? They're posting and they know they can make money from posting. And then they go to their company and they're like, oh, but I post for you. Why aren't you paying me? And it's like, well, we pay you to be a seller, not to post. So I think
Mm.
that there's also like this convoluted line there where some people aren't really leaning into the job that they were hired to do, and they want to turn content into their role, and that's just not always going to be the case.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, look, forget what we think. Who are we? I did a LinkedIn poll, and LinkedIn polls tell us all of the truth. So I'm going to share this. So hopefully you could see. Um, and I did this on that same day, and of course, I don't name names. I don't name and I guess I just did name and shame, but I didn't in this poll. I just said I saw a post from a well-known business leader that said most hiring managers and employees care more about social media presence these days than a resume. It's basically what the post said. So then I just asked, what matters to you when you hire someone? And long and behold, just Lauren and Joel, the lowly recruiters, we seem to be in the majority here. And if you go through, some people made some great points, and I'm not going to go through all the points, but someone actually said that they were found by their LinkedIn by a recruiter. So you could argue that like recruiters, they do a lot of sourcing on LinkedIn. I didn't get a chance to comment. My thought was like, well, yeah, we find you maybe on LinkedIn, but then we immediately, if we're submitting you to a client, we're asking for their resume because there's something in that where it's like, hey, it's official. You've handed in this official piece of paper. You're now wanting to really go for the job, right? As opposed to just sharing a LinkedIn profile. Um, but I think most people are with us. And again, it just goes to like sometimes the way that you do something isn't the way that everybody else does something, or the way that everybody else even should do things. So does this surprise you? Kind of. I mean, I guess it's right in line with what we were talking about.
I wouldn't say it surprises me. I would say, like you said earlier, it's not so clickbaity, right? So it's not going to be as viral, in my opinion. It's not that outlandish kind of opinion that other people don't have. I do think your resume matters. I think it's always going to matter. I've been recruited off of LinkedIn years ago. I was recruited into a sales role. The first thing they asked me when I responded to the message was, will you send a copy of your most updated
Always,
resume? There was
always.
no conversation before I sent it. And as a recruiter, I don't represent you until you send me a resume. You're not serious until you send me a resume.
Yep.
So I don't take you serious as a candidate if you're not sending me an updated resume that we're going to work on and tweak and make better for this job.
Yeah, and I mean, like we can see here, Jamie said, unless a person is a potential candidate in a social media field, an employee doesn't even, an employer shouldn't base things on hiring on digitals. And just for anyone who's out there, the score, because I forget sometimes people are just listening. 91% of people said resume, 9% of people said social media presence. So it was kind of a dumb poll in my mind because it was so one sided. But 91% of people said the resume matters. Other people said it depends on the industry, but people need to remember you can buy followers. We all know that on LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram. I'm not an influencer, so if that's what I'm going to be judged on, I'll never have a job. Someone else said, genuinely interested in this topic, and the fact that only 10% voted for social media presence drives me crazy. You will find me in the comments a lot. Someone said, I find this hard to believe. I feel like most companies still hate people's LinkedIn. And this is from another LinkedIn influencer called John Kraske. He's even got the LinkedIn influencer sign. Says, I find this hard to believe, Joel. I feel like companies still hate people's LinkedIn. Perhaps they are talking about everything besides LinkedIn. So there you have it, guys. What is the major takeaway from this? The major takeaway is make sure that your resume is up to date. Make sure that you're still putting work into your resume, and just don't believe everything that you see on social media. Because some of it is just it's crazy, right? We see the craziest stuff go viral. Um, so I know a lot of you guys. I think this is airing end of August. So obviously, there has been a lot of talk right now about the job market and what is going on with the job market. I've been talking about it for absolutely months, and um, a lot of people have actually, on my content, kind of argue with me, and they'll say things like, "Are you crazy? There's no way. Like the job market's in such a great place." But if we look here, um, we got the report at the end of July for just how many jobs were actually added to the economy. And for anyone who isn't out there, I'm sharing a LinkedIn article. It says it starts with hiring slowed significantly in July. It says that the U.S. economy added far fewer jobs than expected in July. This is the latest sign of a weakening labor market. Non-farm payrolls totaled 114,000 last month, but they were forecasting 185,000. So it's well down. And unexpectedly, which I don't know why this is unexpectedly. This is why I don't always believe like these people who are just looking at data. It says unemployment rate jumped from 4.1% to 4.3%. So I think that's now it's 7 million people unemployed, and only 100,000 jobs getting added each month. So Lauren, what are you seeing? What is this a surprise to you? Um, I mean, what I've seen is like a lot of news articles and even people in politics, like they're just talking about how the job market and the market in general is really, really strong. So is that what you're seeing with the candidates with you talk to your clients? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so is the job market as strong as it was when I first got into recruiting? Absolutely not, right? But
And when was that?
I've only been recruiting for 2 years. So
Okay.
I got into recruiting when it was really candidates market. I've lived through the big shift, where we're back on the other end of the pendulum,
Yeah.
But I really think that, I mean, they missed the mark by like 70,000 jobs that they thought were going to be added, right? So that's a huge, significant amount of roles. But at the same time, there are industries that are doing well and that are growing. I think that that's not talked about in this report this month, but it is something that certain industries are growing, some are not. We're not seeing as many layoffs, right? But the unemployment rate rising, not surprising to me at all. I don't know. Was that surprising to you?
No, it's not because I think we're continuing to see layoffs. And I also think you got to keep in mind that a lot of the layoffs we're seeing are not layoffs that are like publicized like layoffs. A lot of them are return to office. There's a lot of return to office mandates happening. And obviously, if you're in a city that's close to the office, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be more of an inconvenience. But with how hiring went in 2021, 22, it's just companies, they really started hiring people nationally and nationwide. And now there's a call back to the office. And so a percentage of those people are going to be like, yeah, no big deal. A little bit of an inconvenience. But for the people who took a job at a company that's in a different state, to ask somebody to move right now, in my mind, there's a small candidate pool that's going to be able to do that
I
because
agree.
of how expensive rent is, mortgages, family situations. And so I think that number is also getting impacted by things like that. I think to your point, there's definitely industries that are still hiring. Healthcare is one, right? Healthcare is always one that's hiring. But sometimes I think that's not necessarily even to do with growth. I think it's so hard to find people in healthcare. And I know recently LinkedIn had another article, which I'm not going to share right now. You can go to my TikTok to get the commentary on it. But they said that healthcare and education, in recent surveys, they've shown that they have the highest burnout rates. So, like nurses, anyone in healthcare, that's a burnout. That's a burnout situation because you're almost overworked, you're understaffed, and so there's just a need there. Um, so I don't know whether I 100% agree that like that some of those areas are growing. I just think there's just short staffed, and they've been short staffed. Um, What about this? What's your thought with this too? Like these part-time jobs. Uh, do you think some of these jobs are part-time jobs as well? Like people adding other jobs? Like, do you run into candidates at all that like are working multiple jobs? Like, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, so definitely talk to candidates who are doing multiple things, right? I talk to a lot of candidates who are nervous about going into interviews. And what do I say? I can't give up this other thing, right? Like they need the income. And they're like, how do we navigate this conversation? Because I'm not going to let go of this side hustle or whatever it is they have going.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people doing a lot of part time work, consulting work. I see a lot of people who really need work going back to more of this like service type work. And then they're wondering, should I put this on my resume that I'm doing this right now? It's not in my typical field of what I want to be in, right?
Yeah.
So,
What do they call those? They're like a bridge. It's like a bridge job almost.
yeah, like a bridge job just
Yeah.
to, I mean, the lights have to stay on, right? And there's no shame in that, but it's conversations about what do you do and how do you navigate that. And that wasn't something I was experiencing when I first started recruiting, right? Like we were going to talk about a gap and how do we explain a gap on your resume, but we weren't talking about putting a job that you feel like is maybe below your skill level because you're getting by while you wait for your next role.
And
um,
what's usually your advice to people as well with that?
I mean, if you're working, you're working. I think you should say you're working, right? I think it does show initiative. You're doing something. You're not just sitting around. And also, you're going to have to interview with a new company. And if you have a job and you have a schedule and you have to actually go to work, that company needs to know that you can't just be completely flexible. And if you look like you're unemployed, why can't you meet me Tuesday at 2, right?
Yeah.
Like now you have to have a sticky situation and a conversation about, oh, well, I actually didn't tell you I was working. Like, why? Just be straightforward. It doesn't matter. I think a lot of it is how you present it, how you talk about it, your confidence in what you're saying. If you don't sound sure of what you're saying, the person you're talking to isn't going to be sure of you. That's the number one piece of advice I can give anybody in terms of recruiting is that little bit of confidence and what you're saying really matters. And the person across from you is going to be much more engaged in your conversation if you believe what you're saying.
Are you seeing more of like an openness with um like employment gaps and job hopping? Like, is that kind of more of just like a general understanding that things have happened, or are you still running into clients that are like really wanting like these robust stories, or like what's the general consensus there?
I'd say 90% of my clients, they don't care, right? Like it is what it is. They know what we've been through. I mean, I have clients who 2 years ago their company didn't exist, right? They were working somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I definitely think 90%, but I still have 10% who it's like we're recruiting in software sales, and if they have a gap or if they didn't stay at a role longer than 2 years, they won't see them. And I'm like, hello, this is software sales. 2 years is like 10 years. Are you joking? So I just it still depends. It depends on the company. It depends on the culture. I don't really like to recruit for companies that won't see somebody who didn't stay somewhere over 2 years, right? Like life happens and a layoff happens and you won't even hear someone's story. No, thank you. I'd rather help my candidates find somewhere they'll be happier long term.
Yeah, and that's why I always tell people too is like I'm a big fan of transparency and being upfront, because I just think it saves time. And when I'm recruiting on a role, like right now, I'm recruiting on a project manager position, and I reached out, and I wasn't upfront in the original email in terms of like, hey, here's the salary they're targeting. Um, that wasn't what like the focus was, but I've had 3 or 4 people reach back out and go, hey, do you have any idea what it is? I'm like, sure. Like, here's the range that I was given. And there's a little bit of strategy in there where maybe I don't give the 100% max of what they're looking to get. Just so there's a little bit of wiggle room. But um, to me, it's just like it's a transparency, right? And it's like with candidates, if you spent a year looking after a relative that was sick, that's it. To me, that's like shows that you're a good person. You've got some character. And if a company is going to make a judgment on that, or they're going to judge you for doing certain things, I'm honestly on board with like why would you want to go work for somebody that's like that, right? Like, are they going to be do they have that empathy? Are they leading that way? It's again, it's same with like that open to work banner. It's like they're always going to have that percentage of the population that is going to judge you and they're going to think you're desperate. And then I just go, well, that's how someone views it. Like, is that really someone that you want to work for? And but like you said, it's all of this is depends, and it's subjective. Um, we're also seeing the markets getting hit pretty hard today based on this news as well. So again, I guess from your point of view, like when you see these headlines or you see these things, has it been was this like a shock to you, or were you like, yeah, I've been seeing this kind of all along?
I mean, I don't want to say I've been seeing it all along. I've been following the jobs report more recently, right? More frequently, I should say. Um, eh, I don't know. I expecting everything that happened today? And no, was the crash and worldwide everything? No, I wasn't really thinking about all of that. But to be fair, I don't go check the stock market daily. Like
Yeah,
that's not what I'm doing.
you're more like
And I
Bitcoin. I
saw
can tell you're more like checking Bitcoin.
I saw a post today and it literally I wish I could remember. I think it might have been Aaron Riska who posted it, but it was like, you don't ever check this. Like you logged on once in 8 months and you're freaking out. Chill out. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like everybody calm down, take a chill pill. We're gonna be okay.
My thought with all of this stuff is when you actually zoom out. When you zoom out, it's never like as big of a deal. I just think like with the job market, I just always go based on like conversations I'm having, and it's like I've just had so many more conversations the last 2 years than ever, and but it always, a lot of the content I make, I've got like kind of coined the line like the job market in 2024 is absolutely brutal. Like that's my line,
Right.
but I do
Right.
that because it's like I think a lot of the mainstream media, they kind of dismiss it, or they'll just look at these higher level numbers, and I'm like, look, you can't just deny people's experiences. And then it's like the most common message I get from people is, I'm so glad you made that video, or like your content helps because it helps me not feel like I'm alone and like I'm useless. And I'm like, if you're on a
Yeah.
9 month job search, you're not feeling like you're like super valuable, right? And it's like, but then when you hear, like whoever on whatever analyst is going, well, the jobs and unemployment rate is actually amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, like I'm really failing in this time where no one else is. But it's like, and that's sometimes why I look at these numbers. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know even like when you break down the numbers, what jobs are being added. I would guess they're healthcare, like you said,
Right.
manufacturing, like hospitality. I don't know how many corporate jobs are being added. Um,
Yeah.
well, next,
I
oh,
mean,
go
I
ahead.
I will say I do think there are corporate jobs being added. I'm signing new contracts. Like, listen, people talk about the job market, and the job market is tough, but I've signed more clients in 2024 than 2023. Right? Like, I didn't expect that at the beginning of this year, so that was a shock to me, and it seems like it's going to keep doing well. And then the other thing I want to say about you talking about people who've been in this job search for a long time is we talk about work life balance, but you have to remember like you have to have the work when the work life balance. So people who don't have that, your teeter totter can never be level because you're longing for the work side. You have to have both to feel like a whole human being.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who don't work or do something to feel that passion, right? We have to have something we're passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm passionate about LinkedIn polls. No, it's so
I'm
true.
passionate about your polls too.
I'm just passionate about social media. That's why I'm always on there. But no, it's you're 100% right there, and I love that you mentioned that. Um, all right, I got one which, like, man, I feel like I beat this horse over its head a million times over. Can you guess what this is about before I pull it up?
No, I don't know. What are we going to talk about now?
Oh yeah, work from
Oh,
home is over.
yeah.
um, Salesforce. So I feel like Salesforce is just like one of these companies that cannot stay out of the news when it comes to remote work. I don't know if you remember, like the CEO. I think it was like a year ago. Well, he was just like, "Yeah, everyone's got to come back to the office. Blah 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 blah. It's gonna happen." And then it was like he works remotely and never goes into the office, and he's getting
Yep.
roasted and burned. Um,
It
with
was like one of my most popular posts last year was about that.
exactly, because it's just crazy. But Salesforce is in the news, so now they are forcing. So this article is from the Indy Star, so this is actually just local. But I've confirmed that this is happening all over. Salesforce is forcing people back to the office 3 times a week. And the reason I am using the language forcing is because it's also been leaked that they are going to be tracking this with like literally clock in, clock out. So there's this whole thing now where people are like checking in with their badges. I forget the name of the term, but it's a whole thing now where you like check in and then you're at the office for a couple hours to when you need to be, and then you check out and then you go home and get all your work done. So again, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but in my mind, it's kind of like quiet layoffs, right? Because if you're not in Indy, for
100%.
example, and you don't have an office local to you, you're not going to be able to go to the office 3 times a week. But is this surprising? Would you expect anything less from Salesforce at this point?
No, I wouldn't expect anything less. And not just Salesforce. I think there's a number of companies doing this, right? But to your point, how
Walmart,
are you going to what?
Walmart's doing it.
Walmart. All of them.
Amazon, they
But
all are.
Zoom.
Oh, Zoom is my
Uh,
favorite though.
it's like you telling me I have to come back to the office while you're filming in front of a green screen in Bali. Are you joking right now?
So
Like,
bad.
absolutely not. It's
Why
I
would
talk
they
to a
be
lot of
pushing that? Why would they be like leading the Zoom is the one. I wish I had this article. Zoom is the one that like blows my mind. Like your whole product
yeah.
is designed around people working remotely. You blew
Yeah.
up because people worked remotely, and now you're forcing people back to the office. Come on.
Well, and then they go to the office and they just sit on Zoom calls in the office all day.
I know.
Because that's what they do. They're selling Zoom and they're using Zoom. So you're going to go to an office to use Zoom all day. The other thing a lot of companies are doing right now is like actually tracking your activity on your computer, right? Like, so if you have a corporate
Yeah.
laptop, like not just checking in or checking out, but how much are you actually on your laptop throughout the day? And where is your
Yeah,
IP
that's why
address today? Where are
you
you
buy a
logging in
jiggler.
from?
You buy a jiggler, a mouse jiggler. You know, I
You're going to link one in the comments for us. I work for myself, so it doesn't
look.
matter.
I'm telling you right now. All right, I was on TikTok, and I was responding, or I was commenting on one of these videos around this topic. I think maybe I made a video, and then it was like the next ad was this guy. He's like, "Want to know how I get like? Oh, you want to know how my boss knows I'm working? I got this mouse jiggler, and he's selling mouse jigglers on TikTok Shop."
Can I get an affiliate link, please?
I know. I was like, mouse jiggler. I'm like, can you come up with a better name, like the productive jiggler or something? I don't know. Just jiggler just sounds weird, but yeah, they're tracking that. And now I remember the term now. It's coffee badging. This is what we're calling it. Let me ask you though, like, are you still running into, because most of the recruiting I've done recently has actually been in construction where they usually tend to know that they got to be on site because it's hard to build something
Right.
when you're not on site. But what about you in your world? Are you still getting a lot of people like defaulting to remote work, or are people loosening their requirements? Like what are you seeing out there?
I still see a mix of both. I think that for more of my contingent searches, I'm seeing a lot more in person. That's what they need help with, is finding people willing to go in. Um, y'all, I know we all want to be remote. We all want to be remote, but you can't all be remote. We cannot all be remote, no matter how much we all want to be. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but I still have companies that you can either work at the corporate office or you can work remotely, and they still have that as an option. They don't see that changing. Big companies. So, I think it depends. I think right now I'm seeing a lot of smaller companies want people back in the office. Their budgets are tighter, their money is tighter, they're a little bit more concerned about where they're spending their dollars. So they want their employees here with them, working with them, so they can have more of like a tab on them. I know that's sad, but it's true.
Yep.
I'm seeing that from a lot of smaller companies. And then the other thing I want to point out about these big companies with the return to work mandates, when we all had to go home for COVID, right? When we had to stay home, office buildings sat empty for a year, and corporations still had to pay rent. And they're still paying rent on a large number of office buildings,
Yeah.
or they own those buildings, right?
Yeah.
So they're also wanting you to come back because that's wasted dollars for them.
Yep.
And they
Exactly.
need to figure out a way to do something with that as well. So there's a lot of things that happen in boardrooms. It's all budgets and numbers, and it's got not a lot to do with you. So don't take it too personally when somebody says something like you got to come back to the office, because like Joel said, it's probably a quiet layoff. They're not going to announce it. Number
So
of
many
things.
things. And I will
And
say,
if you
well, I will say too,
go
I've
ahead.
talked to a lot of like really high level HR people at really, really large companies. And I will say, like, I think in my mind, sometimes I disassociate people based on titles. And I'm like, oh, CEO, like a mythical creature that like just tells people what to do and lays people off randomly and flies off in jets. But, and I think sometimes it's easy to kind of even think that way. Like, if we're honest, like when we're thinking about executives, like, oh, they can't relate to anything. And I was in a room of really high level HR people in Chicago not too long ago, and this whole topic was coming up. And I will say, like their biggest challenge and what they were like really trying to figure out and like think of the best way was to like actually create reasons for people to be back in the office. And so a lot of these like high level leaders are actually thinking and going, particularly in HR, they're like, all right, we need to like create more. Like if we're going to ask people to come back in, if we want to retain them long term, we can't just have them do what you described, which is go on to 8 hours worth of Zoom meetings. Like we've got to train people, and I think there's an adjustment that they're seeing with managers and leaders like that are reporting into them of like, hey guys, we've got to be able to facilitate collaboration better and like understand that like our days shouldn't be 8 hours a meeting. We can do some of that at home, and like really really trying to facilitate that. So as much as I think that sometimes these headlines read the wrong way, and I do think that a lot of companies haven't done it the greatest, in their defense, I do think that they genuinely are trying to figure it out because they do, it's like people, they do care at the end of the day. I just think sometimes you kind of get these like leaders that are just saying things that are out of touch and from like a PR perspective are just terrible. And I also want to say most of the leaders I'm talking about are also people who are walking the walk as well. And I think that's important. I think if you're going to tell people that they need to be back in, I think you got to lead by example. Otherwise, I just think you lose the credibility of what even you're trying to achieve, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the best leaders who want their office or their people in office, they're in office with them, right? You're
Exactly.
going to be there, you're going to be coaching, you're going to be nurturing those relationships, you're going to be having conversations with your people. It's just a different environment, and it's not always bad to have to into an office. I'd like to point that out too. Great things have come in my career from being in an office and meeting people and networking and finding mentors. So
The
there's
pizza
definitely really
parties?
great.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I like a good slice of pizza,
I know I rip
but
on pizza parties so much, but if people knew secretly like how much I love pizza,
I
I
really love pizza. But like, it's a party if you buy me my own pizza. If I have to
true.
share slices with everyone else, it's not really a party to me. Like, I want my own pizza. I want to share.
I know someone said, yeah, I saw a meme today. It was like remote workers, they don't get as much contact with people as in office people, but it does have its some downsides too. And I was like, I love that. Same with that. It's like I want you just Uber Eats me the whole pizza, okay? I don't need to share with anybody. I don't want that accountant's greasy hand on my pizza.
I'm the person who like I would take one slice on a plate and leave that, and then I would take the box and hand it to the
I'm the
stranger.
same. I'm the
That would
same
be
way.
me.
That's why when I was running the other week and I landed on my hands, I broke my arm. So, um,
I still can't believe you broke your
I
arm.
know. Well, the lesson is don't go running. I mean, it's
Don't go
clear.
running. Eat pizza instead.
Eat
Duh.
pizza and in the office. All right. Um, second to last story here. This is one from yours faithful, Joel Algae. This is a Joel Algae special on TikTok. Have to always show a TikTok video, all right? So
Here we
I'm
go.
gonna put this at the beginning. I'm gonna let it play.
If you are preparing for a layoff, you are not alone. According to a recent survey, over 70% of workers are preparing to be laid off. They're doing things like growing their savings, getting their resume ready, networking, thinking about other ways to generate income if they were to get laid off. If you saw the recent jobs report, it's no surprise why people are doing this. There's currently over 7 million Americans unemployed, and the economy only added 114,000 jobs.
Let's see what else.
This is a fraction of what prepared. While you still have access to the systems, get your KPIs, get your numbers so you know exactly what you've accomplished while you've been at your current company. Second thing, make sure that your LinkedIn lines up with your resume. Make sure that you have your keywords on this. You can be discoverable by recruiters. And number three, start making connections with people in your industry, other people, because when you get laid off, one of the worst things can be that feeling of being alone. And you want to be able to generate conversations with people who will have access to jobs. That's done through networking. If this was helpful.
All right, so I don't know if you heard that in the background, but some guy's going to town on with like a chainsaw in the background.
I didn't hear it. No.
You couldn't hear that? All right, well, that's good. Well, for any of you guys who are out there who are just listening to that, of course, I used a really clickbaity headline on here. It said, "No job is stable in corporate America. Getting prepared for layoffs." Look, this is something which I don't know if you're seeing, because I'm seeing this from like a candidate recruitment side. We're kind of like we're kind of seeing the big stay as well, where like people aren't wanting to leave right now, but they're not wanting to leave companies because they want, they're like, oh, is it, this job market's super terrible. How am I going to find something else? Then there's fear of like, it's like the evil is less fearful than the evil you don't know, because people are afraid that like if they leave, like maybe then they'll get laid off at a new company. But this article is basically saying that like a recent poll shows that almost 90% of people are like almost preparing for layoffs. So I guess what are you seeing with like the candidates you're dealing with? Are more people like asking questions around like, are layoffs possible? And I guess what's like the overall climate, and like what advice would you give to people who are maybe concerned of layoffs?
Yeah, I think people are being super cautious about switching right now, switching companies, switching roles, especially if they have something, even if they know it might not be their ideal scenario. Um, it like you said, the evil is lesser than the evil you don't. So
You said it better,
being
by the
able
way.
to being able to know that you have something that feels stable. I think the other thing is a lot of people have realized that there is no safety net, right? Like
Yeah.
we were all walking a tight line. We all thought there was this safety net. And a lot of people have realized in the last few years that maybe that safety net didn't exist and you fell flat on your you know what. And we're picking ourselves up and we're figuring out what the new normal is if there is no safety net. So I think people don't feel as secure as they felt before. I think that our eyes were opened a little bit with what it could actually be. And at the end of the day, I think everybody's just not so much preparing for layoff, but everybody has in their back of their mind now that it could be your time next. And we've seen it. We've seen phenomenal people get laid off. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's boardrooms and budgets. So it's not always that you weren't the best performer, y'all. Top performers do get laid off
They do.
occasionally. Companies go under. Things happen.
Even
So
people have been at companies for like decades to get laid off.
yes. Yes. And then the other thing I'm seeing is, especially in recruiting, people are asking me a lot when I'm reaching out to candidates who are employed. One, not necessarily why is the role open, but they want to know when the company did layoffs last. Have they done a round of layoffs? What does that look like? What does the hiring look like in the past 6 months? I wasn't answering those questions when I first started recruiting. Nobody asked me when was the last time this company did a round of layoffs. And now it's very normal for a candidate to ask me very early on, what's going on? What's the hiring looked like in the last year? I think that's pretty telling.
100%. No, and look, that's what companies, they need to be prepared for that, like when they're answering questions. And I think those are good questions. But I will also say, man, it's hard during interviews to get that information from people. And I remember one example, I hired somebody or recruited somebody. They were actually a recruiter because I was recruiting recruiters, and I recruited them into a real estate company. And look, man, this guy was getting a big raise, and it was a good deal, and everything sounded good. And I kept saying, like, look, you need to really like consider like the industry, because I don't know if it's like the safest industry with like what's going on with even the interest rates, because interest rates were starting to rise. And it's like the people even during the interview were like, rest assured, like everything's fine. We got all this. We're gonna be good. We're gonna be good. And then yeah, he was involved in like the second round of layoffs, and I felt really bad. But at the same time, I was like, I was trying to prepare you and like having you ask the questions, but I'm also like, these are my clients. So I'm a hand, it's like I'm
Right.
trying to give you the best heads up. But my point there is like sometimes even in interviews, maybe a manager doesn't even know, the director, it's like like you said, it's usually board in the boardrooms. They typically know, but you're
Mhm.
usually not interviewing with the boardrooms, right? Like depending on the size of the
Nope.
company. Um, last story here. This one was sent to you, so I would love to, or sent you brought this one here, and so I would love to get your thoughts on this. But apparently, and I'm just gathering some of this information. So Chipotle, we're using LinkedIn Easy Apply, because apparently in this news article they said Gen Z is the fastest growing demographic on LinkedIn. So guys, LinkedIn's cool. This is what this is saying. But basically, they have like a celebrity status card that they were giving away through the Easy Apply. So like, did you see this actually happen, or like what? How did this even get on your radar?
Yeah, so I actually stumbled upon this live the day it went live, and was pretty just shocked and appalled, to be honest with you. I mean, it's free Chipotle for a year if you get chosen. I think they were going to pick 50 people. And it was an easy apply, and there was like stipulations you had to do with the easy apply. You can't even get to it now. It was pulled within 24
Yeah,
hours. It's just gone.
it says like fans need to submit content that explains why they deserve celebrity card. They must have just not realized
Right.
people don't read and they just click Easy Apply. Uh,
Well, and the other thing is it's very misleading. It's on a job board with all of your other jobs that you're actually hiring for, and it's not a real job. And then the other thing that like I just got salty about this, like you better give me free Chipotle for life if I get win. Like I don't want it for a year. I need it for life if I get like I don't know. The whole way it was presented, I didn't like it. I felt like it was kind of a smack in the face to job seekers. Job seekers need more than free Chipotle every day for a year. They need a
who
job. They
like
need health
who
insurance.
came up with this? This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I just felt like it totally missed the mark. I made a whole post about it. I thought that it was just whoever was in their marketing department and PR, like they didn't think this one through before it went live.
Yeah, because
And
it even says you got to submit a piece of content in the resume section of the application, and then Chipotle wants fans. They want you to get creative. The content can be anything from a video to a photo, even an essay or a poem or original song artwork. It just looks like you want some free content from me.
well, the other thing is they said they were going to pick the people by July 12th. So I'm curious, who did they pick? If anybody's listening or watching, do you guys know who got these celebrity cards on July 12th? Did this even happen?
Yeah, they said
I don't
50. They
know.
said 50 people. I wonder if it's got a link in here. Let's see what that goes to. Doesn't really show. It's a weird link to something else. Wow.
Yeah. I don't think that this one hit the mark like they thought it was going to, and I think that it's going to be pretty hush hush. We're not going to find out that much about it.
That's why we're talking about it right now. Well, then you also shared this. This is an article from Franchise Info, brand partnership. So talking about this as well. So it's got some more information on here. I'm going to link both of these articles. But it said in the release, the company notes social media and the speed of culture are redefining who is considered a celebrity. I'm looking job seekers considered celebrities.
I really don't understand why the Easy Apply application was where we thought this needed to go. And really, if you're a job seeker and you've been unemployed for 9 months and you scroll across this and you think it's a real job, and like you're not because let's be honest, a lot of job seekers don't read full job description. Y'all don't. You look at a job title, you click Easy Apply, like you're gonna spray and pray your resume to a new job. You're not, but that's okay. They don't read it. They just click through, and now they're thinking they applied for a job. Could you imagine if you were on unemployment and you had to prove you're applying for jobs and you put that one down that you applied for that one?
That'd be yeah, and it's like I don't even the fact that you gotta
I don't
like
think that one qualifies.
even the fact you gotta like submit something. I'm like this is like what people hate about the. It's like Easy Apply. Now we're gonna need your resume. Great, here's my resume. Now we're gonna need you to fill out an application with the same information as the resume. Great, did that. Okay, now you're gonna need to do is send a 15-minute interview video, one-way interview, telling us why you'd be a fit for the role. Okay, I did that. All right, now you're gonna need to fill out these 2 assessments. Like this is an Easy Apply. This is weird. Well, apparently,
Okay.
Chief Brand Officer Chris Brandt, who's linked in this, you can see this if anyone is watching. We're consistently looking for the intersection of culture and Chipotle, and sometimes those influence might be. I think they're just. this just seems like it's weirdly off. Like I don't understand how easy applies in the intersection of culture. Like what?
Makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. The whole thing was just so random, and you're a recruiter. I don't know. I do look at the job boards. I look at what's posted. I want to see what's coming. I want to see what's new. I'm gonna go
So you
reach out to
saw
you and
this
try to.
actual job posting then?
I literally saw this live the day it was posted. It wasn't somebody brought it to my attention. I was on the job boards and I saw this
Well,
live.
maybe here's what I'm thinking now is they were targeting like LinkedIn influencers or people who have large followings, and they wanted
I
you to
don't think
apply as like
so.
an influencer to be like, like, hey, I really want this, blah, blah, blah. And then they were going
Maybe,
to use
but
that as like a campaign.
I don't know. I don't think so, only because I do a lot of job search strategy sessions with job seekers, right?
Yeah.
So when I look for a job on LinkedIn, typically I'm not looking for a job that's got anything to do with my skill set. And I think LinkedIn is so freaking confused by me. You should see like the recommended jobs from like the random stuff I search for. LinkedIn has no idea what I want to do when I grow up because I'm searching for like 22 different people. I'm not just searching for me. So it has no idea what's going on. The things I get matched for are very, very funny. I could do like a whole series about the random jobs I get matched for. But I don't really search for anything, obviously, for myself on the job board. But I do search that job board every single day to support my
Interesting.
clients.
Okay. There goes my theory debunked. Well, look, we're out of time. We're actually overtime. So I am super appreciative of all the value you've added. This has been a fun segment. You know what I love when I get people, because sometimes people ask me and they're like, can I be on your podcast? And I'm like, do you do content? And they're like, no. And I'm like, maybe you can be on the podcast. But I love it when there's fellow content creators, fellow recruiters, somebody that's in there, you're having conversations. And I just want to say, if any of you guys are out there, whether you're in sales, healthcare, whatever you're in, if you're a job seeker or you're a recruiter and you're wanting a blueprint to how to get a job or how to like connect with people online, I will say Lauren's been one of the most consistent people I've seen over the past couple of years on LinkedIn. And she's not putting on a front on LinkedIn. I think that's what I appreciate most about you. So we're gonna link all of Lauren's social profiles. Where else can people find out about you? Where can they find out about your business, your consulting? Where's the best place?
Yeah, super simple. Lessons with Lauren.co. Not com.
No, that's not
.co.
simple.
Gotta be a little bit.
.com would be simple.
No, I'm not paying for the .com, y'all. I'm sorry. Who cares? .co works just fine.
I thought I'd
You
made
don't
a
need the
mistake, and then I was
M.
like, no, you accepted the invitation, so that is the right email.
No,
.co.
.co.
Dot.
I'm sorry, y'all. When I was first starting my business, I was cheap. I do not
No,
care.
I love
Cry
it.
about it later. I'm sure somebody else bought the actual .com domain, so I can't have it.
So lessonswithlauren.co.co.
Yep, lessonswithlauren.co. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am not to 40,000 followers yet, Joel, but if y'all want to follow me and help me get there, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, well,
You
you
can
like
always find me on,
37,000, 38.
I don't know, something. We're not there yet, but
Yeah.
it's been a fun ride, and creating content is just so much fun, and I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by so many people, and it's just really, really awesome to get to connect with people like you and do fun things like this.
Are you going to any events coming up? Any in-person events?
I am actually probably not doing many events in 2024. I know.
Any of you guys can't see, I'm just pulling like a sad face. So.
I've talked to a few companies about actually going out and doing some LinkedIn branding training.
Sweet.
So I might be doing a little bit of like stuff like that, helping some recruiters and sales reps understand how to use LinkedIn the right way. So I've got a few things like that maybe coming in the works,
Cool.
but I don't think I'm going to do many conferences this year. I didn't get a big return on my investment last year, but I'd be very straightforward with you. I had fun. I met people. Like those things were great, but right now I've signed a lot of new clients. I'm head down.
Cool.
So
head down, grinding. And your mom too, so it's like you got a lot on in life. It's hard, man. When you got kids, it's hard to get out of town.
yeah.
And
Shout out to Axel. He turns 7 on Friday.
Let's go. Happy birthday, Axel. That's so cool. Well, look, guys, I will highly advise, again, go follow Lauren, go connect with her. If you do connect, just say something like in the connection message, like heard you on Joel's podcast. Always say, be patient. She's not hanging out on LinkedIn all day like me. She's out. She's actually working, doing recruitment. And then if you're interested in their jobs, reach out and attend those live shows. So thank you so much again. And guys, next week we're going to have another co-host. As I always say, if you're interested in being on the show, I look for really 2 or 3 things. Number 1, you got a recruitment background. Number 2, you're doing other content as well. That's actually important to me because when I bring people on the show, I want to have co-hosts so we can talk about these things. And number 3, there is no number 3, but I appreciate everybody out there. If you're interested in that, reach out. And remember, for more resources, go to www.therealistrecruiter.com. Find out all my information, all my socials, all the upcoming content on all the previous episodes of this show. I appreciate you guys, and we will be back next week. Thanks again, Lauren.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.